So to kick things off, I want to introduce Assemblyman John McDonald, who has these projects in his district. It's a sunny day in Cohoes, New York. So you want to take it away?
Marguerite, thank you, and good morning to everybody. And it's a pleasure to at least open some opening comments. And it's interesting when you first reached out. I wasn't really paying too much attention. They said we want to talk to you about renewable energy in Cohoes, and of course, as many of you may know or may not know, I've been in public life for 25 years, but my first 13 years was spent as the mayor of the city of Cohoes. And one of the first challenges I had back in 2000, we had a horrific decision come down before I took office, a tax certiorari case. And I share this because it dealt with the hydroelectric plant known as School Street Hydro, that the city lost. We were hit with a decision of $8 million, which it's a lot of money today, but it's a real lot of money 25 years ago. So nonetheless, I spent a lot of time understanding the dynamics of hydroelectric plants, the value of hydroelectric plants. And the good news is I won't bore you with the details, but we actually ended up with a nice settlement that actually led to greater production of renewable energy at that plant and also greater public benefit. The interesting part is we pull water in from the Mohawk River, and the city's drinking water supply since the early 1900s comes from that canal that feeds into the hydro plant. But we divert some of that water and pump it up about 1.5 miles to our reservoir, where our water filtration plant is, which was built in 1908. So why I mention that is that for well over 120 years, the city of Cohoes has been pulling water from the Mohawk River and pumping it up to the reservoir. And that reservoir has been there forever. We've invested in it at least during my time as mayor, and I know our current administration has. We've, gone through all the reinforcement that's necessary to make sure that reservoir stays in place, because it's considered a dam, and as you know, dams do break. But credit to Mayor Keeler, who took office 5 years ago. He had a great team. I'm going to call out Teresa Bourgeois and Joe Seaman Graves. They were the two main forces. They were really pushing a green energy initiative for the community at large. And it dealt with the things that local governments deal with, like streetlights. It dealt with improvements in efficiencies and batteries and all the pump stations and all those type of things. But what was really exciting was the discovery, and I say discovery with tongue in cheek, of the reservoir being a potential for a floating array of solar energy. And I remember when Mayor Keeler and Teresa and Joe had reached out to me, I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. And they said, well, are there any state programs? And at the time, in talking to NYSERDA, it was kind of like, well, we don't know if we really have something for that yet, because let's face it, when it comes to production of renewable energy, I think we need to have a full court press hitting on all different opportunities. Yes, obviously wind and solar, obviously. I still believe we should be doing some corrections to help hydro. A lot of the hydro producers in this state, just as a side note, they produce a lot of hydro in this state, but they sell it out of state because of the fact that we don't really incentivize hydro production. Admittedly, it's been around for a long period of time, but the truth of the matter is, New York State needs to spend its money wisely on helping New Yorkers and their bills. That being said, I said, guys, I'm going to work on NYSERDA, and they've been great to work with. But who's really going to love this is Paul Tonko. Paul Tonko, as you know, is our longtime congressman. He's been a longtime public servant, but he has been our congressman for the last 14 years now. And before that, he was in the Assembly, where I'm from, for an extended period of time as well. But he's an engineer by trade. He loves this. He has been one of the leading Congress people throughout the country when it comes to renewable energy. Well, when I talked to Paul about this, he was ecstatic. And why not? As you know, he went right and actually secured what is commonly called a member item in Congress, which was reinstituted about 6 to 8 years ago. And he was able to bring several $1 million. This is an $8 million project. It's probably climbed a little bit since that time, but he's been able to bring almost 50%, if not more, money to the table. And that in turn has engaged our partner in the energy field, National Grid, who has also brought resources to bear. And, hat tip to Doreen Harris and her team at NYSERDA, who've also been able to help through the New York Sun program. We've been able to actually piece together resources. And the beauty of this is that this 10-acre site, which has been there for well over 100 years and then some, is just one of tens of thousands throughout the country that have the same potential. As you know, with renewable energy, even in New York State, there are communities, particularly when it comes to wind energy and really into solar, that are pushing back because they're worried that farms are going to be destroyed or green space is going to be destroyed. It's a tension that we have to be cognizant of and we have to work through. The reality is, and my first words of advisement when Teresa and Joe brought this to me was, well, let's make sure DOH and DEC are going to be on board. And they did their homework and they signed off. This, in my opinion, opens up a huge opportunity to really, and this comes from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, who worked with RPI, which is right across the river from us. And they have identified about 24,000 US reservoirs throughout the country that potentially could be hosting floating solar as well. So I really am very proud of our community. I give a lot of credit to Mayor Keeler and Teresa and Joe. I'm very, very appreciative of Congressman Tonko's efforts on a variety of different things, but this in particular. But I'm also very pleased that our state agencies were able to provide not only the expertise to make sure we do it right, but also some of the financial resources to help implement it. When this project is completed, and there's still some work to be done, we are going to have a showcase that should hopefully be replicated not only throughout our county and our state, but throughout our country, because we know that we need to bring more renewable energy sources online as quickly, effectively, safely, and affordably as possible. And the bonus in this project is that the city's projecting to save about $600,000 in its own energy costs. So they've got skin in the game with this as well. They're spending some money on this, but they're also looking to save money as well. And the reality is that we'll be using renewable energy to power the city of Cohoes. So that is a little bit of an update or a little bit of a background. One way, it depends if you're familiar with it, it's an update. If you're not familiar with it, it's a background of what's going on with the Cohoes floating solar, which is something that I look forward to its completion, because I think it really is something that all of us that are of the same belief need to focus on going forward.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful background. So now that we've heard so much interesting story on how you got there, let's turn to the video that the ACE team made this summer visiting Cohoes.
We decided to put a focus on clean energy. The idea is we're putting about 8,000 solar panels on our reservoir, and it'll power our municipally owned building, of which there are about 4 or 5. It'll generate enough power to pay our approximately $500,000 in electric bills that we pay for those buildings, and also generate hundreds of thousands more that we could sell off or give off, perhaps to the school district or something like that. It speaks to what we call our Cleaner, Greener Cohoes initiative. It's a great clean energy project that sets an example for future generations, but also it saves taxpayers money. So it's twofold: clean energy aspect and the taxpayer savings for Cohoes property owners. Project itself is an $8 million project that's almost entirely funded by other entities. I've already talked to other mayors locally about doing something like that, and there's no hesitation. And that's part of the beauty of this, is that we're demonstrating to other municipalities across the state and really across the country that a municipality that has access to a reservoir can, do exactly what we're doing and see the same savings that we're doing. What's not to like about it?